Okay, how do we classify emotion regulation strategies? ER strategies refer to the concrete approaches that people can take in managing their emotions. The most rigorous approach, this is what Kuhl talks about, to how to order or categorize them would combine top-down, theoretical, and bottom-up empirical approaches, including factor analysis. This hasn't been done yet, so Kuhl reviews other potential ways of doing it and also speaks to their limitations. One potentially useful way would be to distinguish between automatic and controlled emotion regulation processes. The problem is that there are many different ways to conceptualize or operationalize automaticity. Another influential approach would be the process model of emotion regulation. This is discussed in a later reading. So this would be categorizing ER strategies based on the time at which they intervene in emotion generation, the temporal order. So now we have 3 visual anchors for 3 targets. This is how Kuhl proposes to organize ER strategies. The type of emotional response targeted will determine choice of strategy. And there are 3, here they are, emotion-generating systems we can target. From left to right, attention, cognition, knowledge, and bodily system. And I'll talk about these 3. People can control virtually every aspect of emotional processing, including, starting from the left, how emotion directs attention, which would mean how we select incoming information from sensory input, and an example would be the emotional Stroop task. The middle picture, cognitive appraisal. Cognitive appraisals shape our emotional experiences. They're subjective evaluations of an emotional experience. Appraisals include attributions of an event to self versus others, controllability of the event, accountability, expectations, the relevance of the event to your goals, and also it involves retrieving from memory different emotional experiences. And then third, physiological consequences of emotion. These include facial expressions, body postures, voluntary and involuntary motor movements, and psychophysiological responses like heart rate and sweating, all related to emotions. The emotional Stroop task. Unlike the traditional Stroop task, Stroop effect, the words presented either relate to a specific emotional state or disorder, or they are neutral, like watch, bottle, sky. So typically when asked to identify the color of the words presented to them, participants' reaction times for negative emotional words is slower than the identification of the color of the neutral words. And this is both in depressed and non-clinical subjects. The second way Kuhl proposes to categorize ER strategies relates to the functions. There are 3 functions from left to right: satisfying hedonic needs, supporting goal pursuits, and facilitating the global personality system. The idea is that by regulating their emotions, people seek to achieve certain psychological outcomes or functions. These functions of emotion, of ER, cut across all the different targets, so attention, knowledge, or the body. And so they are a basic category for characterizing different strategies, because the category, again, is independent from which of the 3 emotion-generating systems is targeted. So first, talking about hedonic needs, promoting pleasure and preventing pain. Sapolsky talks about how negative emotional states are costly to us because we have to mobilize a wide array of mental and physical resources within the individual. So need-oriented emotion regulation is therefore adaptive because it allows us to conserve resources by letting us return quickly to hedonically agreeable states or neutral states, homeostatic ones. Need-oriented emotion regulation may operate even in the absence of like consciousness, any conscious goal. And because these need-oriented functions are directed towards immediate gratification, we kind of associate the needs functions with impulsivity. We also talk about impulsivity in a later article. And then the second one is goal fulfillment. Here we are. Okay. Basically, our emotions can also be goal-oriented. They can help us move towards priorities that are set by specific norms, goals, or tasks. ER may thus help us reach our goals, essentially. And here, an example would be, you might want to devote less resources that are processing to emotional states when there's a change in the task demand and it doesn't behoove you to be so emotional. So you might choose a strategy that helps you kind of refocus on something else. And then, many people think that fear and worry to an extent is productive because it helps you attain avoidance goals. So people might be motivated to maintain negative emotions. The last one, and then if that's unclear, we're going to look at examples later. Personality functioning. Emotion regulation may facilitate personality functioning in two ways. First, if we can self-regulate, we can prevent ourselves from getting locked in specific motivational, emotional states, and we can have more flexibility in our personality functioning, get us unstuck, let's say. And the second way is that these strategies can stimulate the dynamic exchange between personality processes. So they can give us more coherence and long-term stability within the personality system. If it's unclear, on page 17 in this article, there are all these examples. This, I think, was a tricky bit to get over, but it will hopefully make more sense. So people might have different preferences as to what functions they use, and they may alternate between them in their use, and people may pursue multiple functions at once. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay, so this is our second to last slide here. We don't have a consensual, empirically validated taxonomy that has been developed to cover all known ER strategies. So for now, Kuhl says that the most viable higher order category is to look at targets and functions. Look at the emotion generating system that's targeted and look at the psychological functions that are served by emotion regulation. So this is the targets by functions classification system. And the different ER strategies that appear on page 17 inside this matrix, well, inside this graph, table, are examples of each. And I want you to take some time to look at them, because until I really read the different examples, it wasn't really making sense to me how this taxonomy worked, how this targets by functions classification system worked. So if you wouldn't mind taking time to look at page 17, that would be very useful. What we were going to do as a class was do a partner activity where you would look at the review of the strategies themselves in pairs. And we would spend some time here. And the option 1, I thought might have been the most fun, or it's option 2, sorry, would be to teach the ER strategies within your matrix, because there are some things that may become part of your counseling practice, should you decide to practice. And I now find this, this classification system to be a useful tool. Initially, I was pretty resistant to it. And that ends our review of Kuhl.